The sun was sinking low over Red Canyon, staining the sky in deep shades of red and gold. When Daniel Hayes heard the scream, it sliced through the evening wind, sharp and desperate. Not the cry of an animal or the echo of some distant quarrel, but a woman's voice, fighting for survival. Daniel pulled his horse to a halt. The desert had taught him to mind his business. Trouble out here had a way of swallowing good men whole, but the scream came again, weaker this time. His jaw tightened. With a low curse under his breath, he turned his horse toward the sound. Smoke drifted between the canyon rocks. As he rode closer, he saw a wagon tipped sideways and 3 Raphael-looking traders laughing as they dragged a woman across the dirt. Her wrists were bound with rope, her dark hair tangled with dust, but there was nothing broken in her posture. Even on her knees, she carried herself like someone who refused to bow. One of the men shoved her toward the wagon. "You'll fetch a fine price," he sneered. Daniel's hand rested on his revolver. He didn't think, he acted. "Let her go." The men spun around, startled. For a moment, the canyon fell silent, except for the restless wind. Then one of them laughed. "Ride along, cowboy. This ain't your concern." Daniel's eyes shifted to the woman. Her gaze locked with his, fierce, steady, unafraid. There was no plea for help in her eyes, only fire. That was enough. The first shot echoed like thunder against the canyon walls. Horses reared. Dust exploded into the air. The traders scrambled for cover, firing wildly. Daniel moved fast, controlled, every shot deliberate. Within minutes, one man lay groaning in the dirt. Another fled on horseback, and the third dropped his weapon with shaking hands. Silence returned as suddenly as the chaos had begun. Daniel dismounted and approached her cautiously. Up close, he could see bruises forming along her arms, but her chin remained lifted. He cut the ropes around her wrists. She didn't thank him. Instead, she rubbed her wrists slowly and looked at him with piercing dark eyes. "You've just made yourself an enemy," she said calmly. "Those men answer to powerful people." Daniel holstered his gun. "I've never been too fond of powerful people." The wind picked up again, carrying the smell of gunpowder and dust between them. He didn't know her name yet, didn't know her story, but as she stood there in the fading light, strong, unbroken, he had the strange feeling that this moment would change the course of Snort's life forever. Daniel expected her to be gone by morning. He left water by the door, a folded blanket near the fire, and slept lightly with his revolver within reach. He told himself it was precaution. A stranger, an Apache woman, no less, under his roof could mean questions, trouble whispers in town. When dawn stretched pale across the plains, he stepped outside to check the horses. She was there before him. Anna stood near the fence, her injured arm wrapped in clean cloth. He had left out. She had already fed the chickens and drawn water from the well as if she had lived there for years. The rising sun lit her dark hair like a halo of fire, and for a moment Daniel simply watched, unsure what unsettled him more, her presence or how natural it felt. "You should be resting," he said finally. She didn't look at him. "Rest is for those who are safe." The words hung heavy between them. Over the next few days, she didn't leave. She moved through the ranch with quiet confidence, mending a torn saddle strap without being asked, attending to a limping calf with surprising gentleness. She spoke little at first. When she did, her voice was steady, careful, as though measuring whether he deserved the truth. Daniel tried to keep his distance. He worked longer hours, rode farther out into the fields, but every time he returned, she was there by the fire, by the well, or sitting beneath the wide Texas sky, watching the horizon as if expecting it to betray her. One evening, as cicadas hummed in the cooling air, she finally told him why those men had taken her. "And they are working with a land agent from town," she said. "He wants our valley. Gold was found near the river. They are forcing my people to sign papers we cannot read." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors. He hadn't wanted to believe them. I escaped with the documents, she continued, proof of the lies. They think I still have them. And do you? He asked. Her eyes met his sharp and searching. Yes, the confession felt like a spark between dry wood. You should leave, Daniel said quietly. They'll come back. Iona tilted her head slightly. You regret helping me. He hesitated, and that was answer enough. But regret wasn't what twisted in his chest when she looked at him like that. It was something heavier, something dangerous. Later that night, beneath a sky scattered with cold stars, she sat beside him on the porch. The silence between them was no longer hostile. Why did you save me? She asked softly. Daniel stared into the darkness beyond his land. I don't know, he admitted, but deep down he was beginning to understand, and that scared him more than the men who might return. The warning came at dusk. Daniel was repairing a section of broken fence when he smelled smoke. Not the comforting kind from a cook fire, but thick, bitter, deliberate. He turned sharply toward the house just as flames licked up the side of his barn. Riders emerged from the far ridge, silhouettes against the dying sun. More men than before, armed, organized. Anna stepped out of the house, her expression unreadable, but her body tense. She didn't panic. She simply watched them approach as if she had been expecting this moment all along. One of the riders called out, "Return the girl, and we'll let your land stand, cowboy." Daniel's fists clenched. The fire crackled louder behind him, heat pressing against his back. He could feel the weight of the choice settling on his shoulders. Iona moved closer. You owe me nothing, she said quietly. This fight is mine. He looked at her, really looked at her, the bruises that had begun to fade, the unbreakable strength in her eyes. Courage that made his own fear feel small. They burned my barn, he muttered. Seems like it's mine now, too. Gunfire split the air before another word could be spoken. Bullets tore into wooden posts and shattered windows. Daniel grabbed his rifle and fired back, forcing the riders to scatter for cover. Smoke thickened, mixing with dust and chaos. In the confusion, Iona caught his arm. Documents, she said urgently. They are hidden in the canyon caves. If we bring them to town, we can expose them. Daniel nodded once. There was no more time for hesitation. They mounted his fastest horse together and rode hard toward Red Canyon, shots chasing them. Into the darkening horizon, the wind whipped against them, carrying sparks from the burning ranch behind. Inside the caves, torchlight flickered against ancient stone. The air was cool, heavy with secrets. Iona led him through narrow passages until she reached a crevice, hidden behind loose rock. From within, she pulled a wrapped bundle of papers. Footsteps echoed from the entrance. They weren't alone. Daniel pushed her behind him as shadows moved along the cave walls. The confrontation was close, brutal, echoing with grunts and gunshots that seemed to shake the earth itself. When it ended, the remaining men fled into the night. Silence returned, broken only by their heavy breathing. In the dim torchlight, Iona stepped closer, her hand resting against his chest as if to confirm he was real. You could still walk away, she whispered. Daniel cupped her face, dirt and ash smudging between them. Not anymore. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was fierce, born of danger and certainty. In that moment, with flames behind them and enemies ahead, Daniel knew the truth. He wasn't just fighting for justice. He was fighting for her. By the time the court decision was announced, the entire town had chosen its side. Daniel stood at the edge of the crowded street as the verdict echoed from the courthouse steps. The corrupt land agent was stripped of his claim, the forged documents exposed for what they were. Iona's people would keep their valley. There were no cheers from Daniel's direction because victory had come with a cost. Within days of his testimony, the bank called in debts he hadn't even known were waiting. Supplies stopped arriving. Neighbors who once shared coffee on his porch now crossed the street to avoid him. The message was clear. He had betrayed powerful men, and they would make sure he felt it. His ranch was seized by legal technicalities dressed up as justice. Now he stood outside the empty house, wind rolling across land that no longer belonged to him. The barn was a blackened skeleton. The fence posts leaned like tired soldiers. Everything he had built with his own hands was gone. He heard hoof-beats before he saw her. Ayanna rode toward him slowly, dressed in the deep blue and earth-toned garments of her tribe, beads catching the sunlight. She looked stronger than ever, no longer hunted, no longer hiding. Behind her, a small group of her people waited at a respectful distance. She dismounted without breaking eye contact. "You should not be here alone," she said softly. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Seems fitting." Silence stretched between them, heavy but not bitter. The desert wind carried dust around their boots. "My people are safe because of you," she continued. "The council has offered you a place among us. You would be welcomed." The offer was real. He could see it in her eyes. A future, a different kind of life. For a moment he imagined it, waking beneath the same sky, but beside her, learning her ways, belonging to something greater than fences and cattle. But he also knew himself. "I was born to the open range," he said quietly. "If I follow you, I'd always feel like I took something that wasn't mine." Emotion flickered across her face, controlled but unmistakable. She stepped closer, resting her forehead briefly against his chest. He held her as if memorizing the shape of her. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved me too." When she pulled away, neither of them tried to promise forever. Some loves were too honest for lies. She mounted her horse, sunlight catching in her dark hair one last time. Daniel watched as she rode back toward her people, her silhouette growing smaller against the endless horizon. He had Clear's throat, saved the Apache beauty, but as the dust settled and the prairie stretched empty before him, he understood something simple and painful. A man could win a battle and still lose his